Good morning, guys. It is garden tour week 3. And Jared's gonna help us in the garden this morning. Today we were actually prepared to do the garden tour in the rain because when we got up this morning it was raining. But it stopped just in time, it looks like. So we won't be getting soaking wet unless these clouds decide to drop a few more raindrops on us while we're walking through the garden. Say hi.
Hi.
What are we gonna do this morning?
Do a garden tour.
A garden tour?
Yes.
We have big things to show you guys. I don't know. All week long I kind of look forward to this day now so that I can show you guys all of the things that have been happening in the garden. I notice like the tiniest of things and I just get so excited. So hopefully you guys are just as excited about the garden as I am. I covered the chard with this tool stuff, I don't know, about a week ago. And we are finally starting to get some to grow in now. It's going to take a minute before we really get anything because the rabbits came in and just chomped them all down to the ground. So I was actually surprised to see them grow more after the damage that had been done. But it'll be nice to have a harvest of the chard because Jara and I enjoyed that for breakfast, and Jay wants to try it out. Our beans are still doing pretty good. These are red burgundy bush beans, so they have like that deep purple color. I really like the baby beans because they are
Look at these
like two-tone, if I can find one in here. Yeah, here we go. They have the green and purple on them, and they're just so cute. Blue lake bush beans. More growing and continuing to flower. Lots of flowers. And tiny, tiny, tiny little baby beans. The little baby bean.
Look at this little bean.
And some more.
And
These plants are loving the weather lately. But we do have some plants that aren't really enjoying all this rain. How exciting is this, guys? This is our red cabbage that we planted way earlier this spring, and it got chopped down, but it has somehow magically made itself a return. I highly doubt we get anything out of it, but it is getting pretty big already. So we'll keep an eye on it and see how it does. Our celery here is starting to just bush out big time. It's looking really good. It took a minute for it to finally just get somewhere. I think it just kind of got stunted a little bit because we got real hot there for just a little bit. So it seems like it's kicking back into full force though. We'll see. We'll see if we get a harvest off of that before it gets just too hot to have any. Oh, that was long-lived. Jara decided that she was already done this morning. That's okay. Over here along the fence line where we had, obviously you can still see one of the plants, our pea plants. Here's another. We actually came back through and planted some of those extra tomato plants that we still had in the greenhouse. And these are pink oxheart. They're pretty far behind most of the other plants, but they were also in a cup, really begging to be planted into the garden. So it shouldn't be long before these beauties become what they're supposed to be. I actually might be a little more excited to show you this than I should be, especially since I'm not a huge fan of this plant. But I planted these for Jay and my mom and family, and they are beginning to get little fruit buds. So this massive thing here, probably the largest thing in the garden, or one of the largest things. Show you. This is our zucchini plant, and I noticed yesterday evening that we actually have a fruit bud coming in. So here's the flower at the top, and this little pooched out area here is actually going to turn into the zucchini. And all of the other flowers on the plant are male flowers. So it's pretty exciting. It won't be long, guys, before we get some zucchini harvests. This is a Chinese 5-color pepper. And there's 4 over here, and they are just having the hardest time getting going. They're finally really starting to grow, but they're still moving real slow. Here's some other peppers. That one's still pretty puny, but these 2 over here are finally beginning to really fluff up and fill out. And it's only been a week. I mean, last week our peppers were just these puny little sad excuses for a plant, and now we're finally starting to really see some foliage come in, and it excites me because I was slightly worried that we weren't going to have much for pepper plants, but this gives me hope right here. These are yellow 7-pot peppers, and they're supposed to be very hot, so when they finally start to grow some fruit, maybe I'll have to have Jay come down here and do a garden tour with me one day, so y'all can witness the true heat of the plant. I have some okra planted in here in between the peppers, and these peppers are just really having a rough time. Some of them are doing really good, and then others are just I don't know, I guess they just got riddled with pests. Like here's one, and this is a Thai red chili, and then the other 2 are pretty much just like obsolete. There's one, and that puny little thing, believe it or not, is actually another one. But the okra is looking pretty good. It's tiny, but it's getting there. It won't be long before these plants just really start getting big. This is one of the things I've been excited to show you. So this is a variegated coxcomb. It's actually a really neat looking flower. It looks kind of like a brain, and I seen it in the Baker's Creek catalog, and I had to have it. But look at the variegated coloring on these leaves. Isn't that just the neatest thing? Ugh, it's just so cool. I'm really excited. Here's more. I'm really excited to get to see these grow. Jalen said that they look like they would be really good bouquet flowers. Here's another one of those pepper plants that's really starting to show itself out here. This is a Brazilian starfish, and we do have two others, but they look nothing like this. They look sad and puny. These are really neat looking. They're little red peppers that they're just kind of mild in heat, nothing crazy, so probably something I'll eat. And they are actually kind of shaped like a star, so I'm pretty excited to get to see these peppers come through. This is Jay's Aztec zinnia, the Aztec zinnia that Jay picked out when we accidentally went flower shopping. And I just love how one plant will just throw off so many new shoots, and before long we're gonna have so many flowers on this one plant. It's very exciting. These are the Reza Macedonian. I'm probably saying that wrong. They were eaten by bugs, but they're still fighting. So hopefully we see these grow into adult plants at some point in our garden. But these have like really neat carvings on them, so they're kind of cool. They're not like crazy hot or anything, but still pretty excited to see these grow up in our garden too. Here is the only Augie Cheripita, also might be saying that wrong, pepper plant left in our garden. And I might actually have some over by the greenhouse that might eventually turn into plants that can be put out here. But this one is supposed to be the most expensive pepper in the world. And it originated in Brazil. It's just like this tiniest little cherry looking pepper, and it's yellow. It's supposed to be really good in salsas, and we like our salsas, so we had to try it. Look at these zinnias. Aren't these just like the prettiest things? And there's just so many more budded up and ready to come in. And then we have our little area of sugar rush peach, and as you can tell, some are doing pretty good, like that one, and then some not so much, like that one. But they're supposed to be good peppers, so we had to try them out too. Sorry guys, I just totally put you through pepper overload, but all of the peppers are finally starting to just perk up and grow. And in the beginning, when I started this, the garden tours just 2 weeks ago, well, 3 weeks ago actually, these pepper plants were just so tiny and so minuscule that I didn't feel like it was really worth showing them all. So now that they're finally starting to get some girth to them, I thought I would share my excitement with you guys. This basil is like the coolest thing. I just really like the flowers on it and the purple coloring. And I just realized there's a lot of purple in my garden. I did go through the garden and we kind of just threw a bunch of random seeds in to kind of fill in the areas that were still bare. And we actually still have 1 or 2 bare spots right now, but we'll eventually get something put in those areas. I planted the rest of all the beans that I had, and then I went a little flower crazy on a couple of areas. But it'll be okay. Hopefully it's really pretty. One area that I know I went a little crazy, I sowed probably like, I don't know, 100 seeds. And I know I'm gonna have to pick out a lot or transplant a lot in order to really allow those to grow. But it was just a bunch of mixture of seeds, and I planted it over by this tree over here. And this is a lavender tree. It's not really liking being in the garden, I don't think. It's having a rough time already. But these little flowers were purple in the beginning, and they were really pretty, and it did smell of lavender. But hopefully we can get it back into good health, and it'll make a good recovery. But I planted seeds all throughout here, and if you look closely, we have some little, oops, we have a bunch of little sprouts coming in. So hopefully I didn't go just too crazy with those, and it looks really pretty in the end. Guys, this is the loofah plant. Look, it has tendrils. I keep having to come out here and pick it up and put it up on the trellis because it just does not want to grow up the trellis. This little guy just wants to keep growing over. But it won't be long before it's tall enough to really wrap on a couple of these strands. I can just imagine these loofah plants fully on this TP trellis, and it's gonna be so cool. Here is another one starting to finally get in some tendrils, and it looks like it's trying to stretch up, so it might be a bit easier for us to really get this one to wrap on this trellis. Pretty exciting, guys. Right now is when I wish Jara had stayed out here with us, because these sunflower plants are just getting so big, and having her to really show you guys how tall these are would have been really neat. But they're pretty tall. Really starting to fill out and get that thick stem. I'm excited to see how tall these really get. I think I might have gotten a bit ochre happy in this spot. I have like 4 plants in one spot here. I'm gonna have to go through and pinch a couple out. But they're looking really good. These are Alabama red okra. And look at that really red stem. That's really cool. Last year we only grew Clemson spineless, and they were good, but we just didn't get a whole lot because we didn't plant just a whole lot of plants. So this year we decided to try out a couple of different kinds. We have the Alabama red, we have Clemson spineless over here. Down here we have Fife Creek cowhorn okra. So that'll be neat to see 3 different kinds coming in. Okay guys, these are my sad excuse for cherry tomato plants. For some reason they just are dying. I really think it has something to do with all of this rain that we've been getting. So I went ahead and planted some more in here in hopes that they will pop up and the kids will get some this year. But if we don't, then I guess we'll try again next year. We have cucamelon. So they're still really tiny, and I almost didn't want to do it, but I knew that I really just needed to get them out here. So the cucamelon is now in the ground. I heard that they are slow to start, but once they really get going, then they grow very quickly. So let's hope that's how it actually works for us. Look at these pumpkin plants, guys. I cannot even believe it. They are just so big. This one is so big, it was actually climbing all the way down and trying to wrap up into this one. So I went ahead and just pulled its stem around. And if you haven't ever planted pumpkin before, this is actually our second year. Oh my gosh, guys. I just found something. Hang on. Look at that. That is going to be a fruit. Oh, that's so exciting. Sorry, off track. If you haven't ever planted pumpkin before, this large vine that runs all the way through from the very beginning of the growth, if I can get you down in here. Right here is the main vine. That's where we planted it, and it just started to grow. And it grows and puts off all these extra sprouts, but that main vine continues to grow throughout the whole plant. And as it grows, it actually sends out little tendrils that will grab into the dirt, and it will kind of reroot itself along its path if you don't catch it quick enough. So I went ahead and pulled it over here before it rerouted on the route it was going, so that we had the ability to wrap it around and really just let this one kind of bush up some. Seeing that little pumpkin fruit just really, like, it excites me so much. Last year we planted pumpkins and they were run over by a tractor because of the electric company coming through to clean up the lines, and the man who did the job just didn't care for anybody's belongings or hard work. And the ones that did persist through the damage from being run over, we did get one pumpkin fruit coming in, but then we got hit with powdery mildew. So I am like extra excited to really get a pumpkin this year. I'm hoping for more than one, but even one will make me just like ecstatic. This pumpkin plant keeps trying to grow up the fence, and I've been pulling it away from the fence, and it's not quite long enough for me to just curve like I did the first one. But I don't know. Maybe I should just let it climb if it's gonna climb. I mean, I can always sling up a pumpkin. We'll see. You guys might see this plant climbing up the fence next week. Who knows? Little unorthodox vining up your pumpkin plants, but hey, it's cool, right? Jay got me this little thing. It's like a little trailer. So I need help from all of you corn growers. Here is the issue. I have corn, obviously, and it's growing, but it is nowhere near the size of the kids' corn. So is my corn just growing at a normal pace? And theirs is just like on steroids? Or has mine been stunted somehow and needs something soil health wise? Because theirs, I will show you in a minute, is huge, and mine not so much. So here is the peaches and cream corn, and it is growing. It does look bigger than it did last week, But it is nowhere near the size of the kids'. Yeah. So the corn is not very tall. And some of them, like this one over here, these are just even shorter. And I did plant new corn, and none of that has come up yet. I'm not seeing any new sprouts yet, so maybe it's just taking its time. But this corn actually looks quite a bit smaller than the other corn, maybe? I don't know. Thinner, like skinnier for sure. And maybe that's just an aspect of glass gem corn as opposed to the peaches and cream corn. These stems seem to look a little more puny, but these are more close to the same height as each other, whereas the peaches and cream corn are kind of just like all over the place. So if you know anything about corn and what I can do to help this and what might be causing this, or if this is totally normal, leave me a comment down below, because I'm lost and I really want some corn. I told you I would show you guys the kids' corn, and here it is. Guys, I cannot even, like, look how cool these things are. Ugh. Look at those spots. I'm so excited to get to see a melon on this because I love this one. This one's probably my favorite. I don't even know why. Like, it's just really cool how that one leaf is just like completely rogue and it's like, oh hey, I'm cool. But the melons on this are supposed to be the same way, and I'm really excited. They're actually like a real dark green, and then they have those yellow spots. So I'm really excited to see those. And look at that. We have some little tendrils coming in. So that means this thing is going to start going all over the place real soon. Look at all those little tendrils. No flowers yet, but that's to be expected. If you've watched week 1 garden tour, then you may have realized that I mentioned I have 2 kinds of watermelon growing right here. And I do. I have the Moon and Stars watermelon that I keep showing you. And I also have rattlesnake watermelon. But that watermelon doesn't seem to be doing as well as the Moon and Stars. It is finally starting to grow, so I'll show you one of them, but just nowhere near the size of the Moon and Stars right now. And maybe it will catch up quickly. Who knows? Maybe it will outgrow the other. We'll see. So here is one of the rattlesnake watermelon, which is the watermelon I grew last year. And if I remember right, it did have a slow start, but once it really got started to about this size or just a bit bigger, it kind of just took off. And I mean, it took over the trellis last year in no time. So these ones might be outshining the Moon and Stars here pretty soon. The peanut gallery doesn't have a whole lot to say, but it is growing. Oh, potato, potato. Now that we've seen potatoes, let's talk tomatoes. We came back through and planted quite a few more tomato plants that really just needed a home, and we found space for them. We might actually end up putting a couple more in. I'm like this much discouraged because Jay came home from work yesterday, and he is a lawn care specialist. So he is on lawns all over the place. So he gets to kind of like scout out other people's gardens. And he mentioned yesterday that all of the other gardens are like really tall and really full, and ours kind of looks puny. So we lost a lot of plants actually. Like a lot of things were eaten down to pretty much nothing. And those plants have made a huge comeback. So to me, our garden isn't puny, but he's right. I feel like the garden is a bit smaller than what it should be right about now. But I have hope that the garden will be big and luscious and full soon. So if you think our garden is really tiny and you feel like there's some tips that we could use to help these plants grow better, then let me know. At the rate it's going, we're not gonna have harvests until like, October or something on some of these things. And with pumpkins, that's totally fine. But like okra in October, tomatoes, gotta wait till then. I'm not so sure we're willing to wait that long for those. Look at how many buds we have on this plant. Look at that. Bud. And up here. Bud. Just all these buds. They're just like everywhere right now. Which, to me, is a good sign. And like I said, our plants are kind of puny. They're not very big. They're just now starting to reach the trellis. And not even all of them, to be honest with you. I mean, this next one right here is not even touching the trellis just yet. And then we've got a whole section down there where we don't even have the trellis in yet because the plants aren't even big enough to really worry about. Look how big these blossoms are. Goodness gracious. I don't even think I saw a blossom that big last year. So it gives me like hope that we're going to have some really nice sized tomatoes on this plant right here. A chocolate stripes tomato over here. And the leaves look a little rough. We have some bug damage and we have a little bit of curling, which is probably because of all of the water right now. So hopefully those will perk back up when it dries back up a little bit. But look how many buds are on this thing right here. Look at that. That's just a massive amount of buds in just one little spot. So we will be having some baby tomatoes growing very soon on this plant. Here we have tomatoes. These are just some cute little tomatoes right now. These are chocolate stripes tomatoes. Here is one of the tomato plants that I was talking about that was eaten down to nothing. It was literally just the stem, and it was like nothing. We walked out here and it was just like an empty stem. It looked like a dead tree in the middle of winter. But it came back, and as you can tell, it fluffed up. So what we had to do was allow some suckers to grow and turn into the main plant itself. That right there is actually the main stem. And it didn't get anywhere, obviously. So we have, just a little sucker here growing, and this is also a sucker right here. And these main stems here were actually suckers at one point of their life too. But we allowed it to just kind of bush out with the suckers that it had on it that started to grow after it had already been eaten down to nothing by those flea beetles. And look at that. Just a whole bunch of little buds, opened flowers. And so this poor little plant has had a rough life already, but hopefully it has a better one from now on. So if you guys have been watching for a while on our channel, you know that I am a mom of 3, but all 3 are girls. And I come to do my garden tour, and this is what I find. A toy gun. Who would have thought with 3 girls that we would find a toy gun just sitting in the middle of the garden? But that's my life. Our Brussels sprouts are still, you know, just the bullseye in the garden for all of the bugs. And I guess that's okay this year. Maybe we'll try again next year and do some row covers or something. Or maybe we have enough time in the fall to plant and try for a harvest then. The beans, all willy-nilly over here that Jalen planted, are starting to really bush up and get somewhere. It won't be long before those beans look like those beans. This strawberry plant in the planter is just loving where it's living. And I am obviously going to have to transplant it because there's just not going to be enough room in there for this plant. But it's doing really good and it's not being eaten by the rabbits, so that's kind of making me not want to move it. Golden Delicious muskmelon that we planted is finally starting to get its first true leaves. And I don't think that it will be very long before it really starts to climb up this trellis and fill in. So that's something to look forward to here pretty soon. Our lettuce, look how pretty that is with the rain on it. Isn't that just pretty? Our lettuce is actually getting really tall, which this is my first year to grow lettuce, so I believe that's a sign that it's beginning to bolt, which makes sense because it is pretty warm. But we did harvest some and we enjoyed some of it. These cucumbers are beginning to vine up the trellis now. It won't be long before we see this trellis just covered in little cucumber plants. And I didn't plant just a whole lot next to each other because I want them to have plenty of room to really grow and produce for us this year. Last year I grew about 4 on a trellis and they did really good, so we'll see how well it does again this year. We are nearing the end of the tour, but there is one last thing that I am most excited to show you guys. You guys may not be as excited as I am, but here we go. This little plant right here was our poor little noodle beans that I showed you. And if we continue to follow this plant up, it's getting healthier and it is vining up our trellis. So even if this is the only plant we get that grows, I am just like filled with joy about this. If we can get this one plant to produce even one bean pod full of beans, then we can try again next year. So my hopes is that this plant grows, and the other 3 are really getting there too. Nowhere near how big this one is, but they are beginning to show that they're strengthening up and really trying to push through whatever it was that really bothered them in the beginning. My plan was for it to just be full of noodle beans and just, you know, beautiful hanging down snake-like beans when you first walk in, and obviously we haven't gotten there, but this is like hope right here, like in pure form, because it's growing, and that's like my precious. Well guys, that is it for this week's garden tour. Probably not as exciting to you guys as it is to me. I hope it is. Remember, if you liked this video, please give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, And if you haven't already, subscribe, hit that bell to be notified the next time we upload a video. Bye, guys.